right, hello and welcome to the MatchDayVlogs YouTube channel. As always, please remember to smash that like button and hit subscribe because it really does make a difference to the channel. We're here this evening to talk to the opposition. I'm glad to be joined by Pete from Loaded Mag NUFC to give his insights on our opposition for Sunday's game, 2 p.m. at St Mary's Stadium against Newcastle United. Pete, how are you? Keeping well?
Yeah, always keeping very, very well. And as you can imagine, at this moment in time, we're enjoying things. We're actually enjoying football for a change. It's a great experience. We've not had this for quite a while, so yeah, I'm okay.
The dizzy heights of fourth with only one loss so far, so I can see why you're smiling so widely. But I guess my first question to you, in fact, firstly, before I do that, I'm going to link your channel in this description here and also in the title. So please go and smash a like and a sub on the channel. So we like to give our credits to the opposition to join us for these. Right, on my first question. Which would be, it's been a fantastic start to the season for Newcastle. Is there a kind of thought amongst the fan base of what is the potential for this season? I mean, are you guys thinking, okay, Europe, or is there some out there thinking Champions League? I mean, you're in the fourth at the moment. What is the belief level like amongst the Newcastle fans right now?
You know what, Mike? It's a great question, and I think there's a lot of confused Newcastle United fans right now, and there is, and
Uh-huh.
that's why it's such a great question. Because if you'd have asked us at the beginning of the season, regardless of who we've signed and how much money we've spent, I think the vast majority, 90% plus of Newcastle fans would have said, you know what, anything in the top 10 would be considered a great season for Newcastle United.
Yeah.
The fact that we won't have to talk about relegation, the fact that we were in the top half of the table, which we haven't been since Rafa Benitez was at the club many years ago, that would have been considered a great season for us. But, just like Eddie Howe's done since he come to the club, he's exceeded expectations, and we're sitting fourth in the table, and there's almost a feeling around the fan base that we just can't quite believe it, that we're actually sitting fourth in the table. We're playing football that's potentially top four, top six level in terms of the way
Yeah.
we're playing and all the rest of it. But to be there, knowing that a year ago where we were, bottom of the league, it's just I think there's just that level of we just can't believe where we are right now, and we're just enjoying every single moment of that. So going back to the point, where we think we are or where we think we can finish, I think it's quite mixed. I think that
Mm-hmm.
you get a smaller section of fans that will go top four. Why not?
Right.
13 games in, top four, we can do it. We're competing. We beat the likes of Tottenham. We've gone toe to toe with Man City. We only lost to an 98th minute winner from Liverpool at Anfield when the game should have been ended and we should have got a point. All of those conversations, there'll be a small section that should be saying that. I think the majority of fans will be thinking, you know what, where we are right now, we should be looking at European football, however that comes.
Right.
Whether it's seventh in Europa Conference League, sixth or fifth Europa League, or if we're lucky enough, Champions League football. And I think anywhere in that European spot, I think Newcastle United fans would be very, very happy with at this point right now with where we are at.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things which I always look at and think like there are so many clubs in the league right now that are fighting for European football, and there's only so many places. But when you look at the potential spending power that Newcastle United have got, and if you're still up and around it in the January transfer window, I mean, I think there's perhaps some things that you could really push on and do. But yeah, I mean, it's I sit here jealously looking at the. We do miss you on the bottom half of the table, by the way, and it would be nice to have someone else to fill out those positions in and around us. But
You're not the only ones, Mike. There's been a few others, and let's be honest. I think that's what a lot of teams. I've spoke to Crystal Palace fans. I've spoke to sort of Brighton fans, Brentford fans, and West Ham fans that have all said the same, that although some of them are kind of pushing above their stations, maybe, or
Yeah.
doing really, really well. Wolves fans even, and they're kind of saying, they're all saying the same things, is because Newcastle under Steve Bruce and Mike Ashley were a guaranteed to be down there, and it was one position that was likely to be taken, and
Right.
that wouldn't be taken by yourselves and other teams. But
Yeah.
because we've moved out of that, it means there's another place available, and it puts more pressure on the other teams. Look, I'll be honest, I'm not bad. I'm not sad about it. In fact, rightly so. But equally, we've had nearly 15 years of that, 14 years, should we say, of Mike Ashley not being ambitious, not putting the club first. And honestly, I think most Newcastle fans, 99% of Newcastle United fans, are just happy that we've got an ownership that are ambitious, that they want the best for the club and not just the best for their own pockets.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, really positive to see that we can have, with all the controversy around our ownership, the fact that we've got owners that actually care about the club, the city, the community, and they've already shown that in the short time that they've been at the club. That is, for me, and for us, that's just exactly what we wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's certainly something to behold. I mean, in terms of the wealth, I mean, it's just ridiculous, the gap that's there. I mean, you could literally give every single club in the Premier League 10 million quid, 10 billion quid, and still be the richest club in the league. I mean, that's the kind of the madness that's upon us. But we shall see what happens. And the transfer window's coming up, so let's see what happens there. But in terms of looking at the players, I mean, I think what's been also quite impressive from the rest of us looking in is the development of players that you already had in the squad, sort of prior to the money coming in, who have suddenly turned into these fantastic squad players. But if you had to pick maybe just one that stood out for you the most, I mean, maybe one or two that you just think this player is really transformed completely. Is there any particular one or two that stand out for you?
Yeah, there's definitely two. There's probably three or four, if I'm honest with you. And the two, three, or four that I'd be mentioning are not players that we've signed. They
Right.
are players that have been at the club under the worst manager and ownership that we've had at our club. So the two that stand out for me, one is Joe Linton. We signed him for £40 million from Hoffenheim, and he was signed as a striker. Not a lot of people know that actually the January transfer window, before Rafa Benitez left the club in the summer, the deal was actually done for Joe Linton to come from Hoffenheim. Not a lot of people know this, but Rafa Benitez didn't want him because he didn't see him as a striker and he didn't think he was good enough. And that was
The irony.
yeah, that was
He was right.
as a striker. Benitez was absolutely right because he wasn't a striker, and that was sort of that was what sort of broke the bond between Benitez and Mike Ashley, because Mike Ashley was always going to press ahead with it. Anyway, he came to the club. He clearly wasn't a striker, and you could see early on that he just wasn't built to be a striker. He hadn't played as a striker at Hoffenheim, really under difficult moments. And I was, for one, and many others felt the same, that when we had our takeover, he'd be the first out in January on loan, or even moved on to take the money that he was on. He was on £70,000-£80,000 a week, a lot of money for Newcastle. We don't pay a lot of wages, big wages out. But Eddie Howe comes in, and one of the first people he spends his time on is Joe Linton, and says, look, you're my guy. This is why I think you're going to improve our game. He plays him out on the left and plays well. But the Norwich game, when Clark gets sent off after 10 minutes, he plays him in the centre midfield. And what we see right now is Joe Linton playing his absolute best as a number 8. It came by chance, but he is proving that he's ultimately worth the money that we paid for him, although not the position that we actually bought him for. So he's been a revelation. He's on the cusp of the Brazilian squad. The Brazilian manager was there last weekend at St. James's Park to watch him against Aston Villa. He scored and was on fire. Also watching the likes of Bruno Gomes, Douglas Luiz, from Aston Villa. and Coutinho, who came on as a sub. But watching Joe Linton very closely, because there's a space in that squad for him, and I pray that he gets picked. The second person has to be Miguel Almiron. Miguel Almiron, I think for most Newcastle fans, and on our show, Loaded Mag NUFC, we did a show called Squad Game, and we looked at players that could be moving on, that could be staying, that could be released on a free over the course of the build-up to the end of last season and in the summer. And Miguel Almiron at the end of last season was a player that I think through most of us on the channel thought that he would be at the club and be sold. Now, towards the end of the season, he put in some fantastic performances, and then he took that into pre-season, was actually the best performer in pre-season. Again, not a lot of people would know that. He scored the most goals, he put the best performances, he was on fire. But what he's done is took it into a Premier League season, and he's been very, very, very good. And October was his best form of his career at Newcastle United, and fully deserved. And yeah, I think the fact that Eddie Howe's been able to turn those two players around in particular, I'll throw in Fabian Shaw in there as well. I won't go into detail, but Fabian Shaw's been a revelation.
I gave you two.
Yeah, Steve Bruce wouldn't even play him. Steve Bruce wouldn't even play Fabian Shaw. 3 million from Deportivo, wouldn't even play him. Now he's come in, he's part of the best defensive unit in the Premier League. But I had to mention that because he has been good. But Miguel Almiron, Joe Linton, 100%.
Yeah, and of course with Joe Linton suspended for Sunday's game, I guess the one to look out for would be Miggy Almiron, although he's been touted as MESSI Almiron. I hear a lot of Newcastle fans saying that one. But in terms of the danger threats for Southampton on Sunday's game, I mean, you've already mentioned Almiron there. I mean, who else is really going to be standing for you on Sunday?
It'd be rude not to mention Bruno Guimaraes. Bruno Guimaraes is, for me, a world-class midfielder. He is. We are incredibly lucky to have him, and that's the thing I'll say, is that we signed him when we were 19th in the table last January for just near £40 million, and he was willing to come and be part of the project, not for mega money. He's not the most paid player in the club. He's only on about 100 grand a week, which in Premier League wages is not a lot of money. But he wanted to be part of the project. He wanted to grow and build with the team. And he has quite quickly become the most important player in Newcastle United's team. You'll watch on Sunday. I'm not saying he'll do it for 90 minutes because I'm not taking anything away from the Southampton team, but he loves to control possession. And he is very, very good on the ball. It's very hard to get the ball off him. And he controls and dictates the play for Newcastle United, particularly on that right-hand side with Almiron. He's built up a great relationship with him and Trippier in that nice little triangle. He's the one to look out for because he's such a intelligent but dynamic player. Callum Wilson, I'll throw that in there. He's in the 55-man provisional squad. It's looking like he could potentially make the World Cup squad. Obviously scored 2 goals last week. He's looking very, very good and very sharp at the moment. And he's another one to look out for because he's just one of those players. His movement's so good. You think he's going one way and he just skips another and nicks the ball and gets the goal. And he's one of them that's just so unpredictable. So I would say those two players are our standouts from an attacking point of view. But certainly.
Yeah, certainly dangerous ones to watch. And in terms of, from what you've seen from Southampton, and I'm not sure how many Southampton games you've watched so far this season, but what's your general impression of Southampton at the moment in terms of where they are in the league and any potential threats you see in the Southampton lineup for Newcastle on Sunday?
Well, look, as you know, there's a keen interest in Southampton for a particular reason, and I do like to try when possible to keep hold of and watch Southampton play. And as you know, you've got Shea Adams in the team, and I was lucky enough to coach him at school level when he was at school. I'm based in Leicester. He's from Leicester, and I had him. I was actually his mentor, and not before I was even his football coach at school level. And lucky enough to be around him and see his progression Saw him when he got released from Coventry at the age of 14 and was very despondent and done with football. And we gave him an opportunity, myself and the other coach at school level, to say, keep playing because you are good enough to play at a top level. And we gave him an opportunity at school level. He then took that on after he left school and went to play men's football and grew and developed into what he is today. So I do like to follow Shay Adams' career quite closely. So I was really glad when he moved to Southampton. Great club, great position for him to develop his career. He's become an international off the back of that, which I'm really pleased about for Scotland. So I do look at Southampton quite a lot. And obviously I'll always look at Shay Adams, and I really like the player he's become. 5 goals this season, doing really, really well.
Yeah.
For the career that he's developed. But again, you've got some young players that really sort of excite me. You got is it Cocham?
Yeah, Bella Kopchap.
Yeah, chap, centre back, who's been getting lots of rave reviews. I didn't actually realise, and you mentioned it to me, that he got into the Germany squad at 18, which is unbelievable, and just shows the amount of talent. Lavia from Man City. I'm really, really interested to watch him really closely, as in watch a full 90 minutes of him play, because there's been lots of talk around him. Aribo, watched him at Rangers in Scotland. Looked a really, really good play, but it's very different in the Premier League in terms of the expectancy and the level of quality. So again, coming up against a very highly pressed Newcastle team that like to press you high up the pitch, cause you problems, ask a lot of questions on you, in tight spaces. Really interesting to see how he gets on. And Bazuna in goal, I'm a huge fan of him. And although he's conceded a fair few goals this season, that he's also saved you a lot of goals as well, potentially going in this season. So there's a few players there that I want to keep an eye on. The one player I wanted to keep an eye on more than anybody, he's not playing, Carl Walker-Peters. I love him. I've been at Newcastle, and obviously I'm happy in one sense that he's not playing, but disappointed in the other, because I really, really rate him as a player. He's a top talent.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one on that right back position. I mean, we said in our previous show, and also the one that we just recorded with you guys, is the fact that in our right back position we're probably going to have someone who's not right back at all. It's probably going to be Ainsley Maitland-Niles in there, or maybe Lianco if we're going for like an old school style right back. Who's done a great job, but will ultimately be a defender in that right back position rather than anything pushing forward. So it'll be kind of interesting to see the kind of duels that kind of happen out on the pitch with the opposing players. But yeah, man, I mean, in terms of the clean sheets you guys have got, it's going to be tough. It's going to be very, very tough. But I kind of feel you guys are due a blip. Are you feeling that as well? It's an impossible question to ask an opposing fan of a football team. But do you feel like this bubble may burst, or are you just all the way?
Look, I think, Mike, be honest, I think it's a really good question. And I think most Newcastle fans have been saying, look, we'll just take it week by week. I think being honest, I think most Newcastle fans thought the bubble might burst last weekend against Villa. They just come off a 4-0 win against Brentford. New manager coming in, although he wasn't in the dugout. We thought the bubble might burst at St. James's Park, but the fans got around us, wore flags, got around the team and really galvanised the team. It was a very bitty game, but we made the most of it. It showed a different side to Newcastle United in our performance. Obviously, it's different away from home. Southampton isn't always been our best stomping ground, although in recent years it's been slightly better. So again, and my co-host on Loaded Mag Away Days, Chris, he's always earmarked this as a potential banana skin, even more so than Villa. And we have Chelsea next weekend, even more than those two games. He's earmarked this as a potential banana skin because of what Southampton are capable of. You proved it against Arsenal. You were very, very good in that game. And us away from home and St. Mary's not being the best stomping ground for us, there's a potential for an upset. But Yeah, I think most Newcastle fans are a little bit cautious because we are taking game by game and we know the bubble will burst at some point. We just don't know when it is because we're just being relentless at the moment. We just continue to build and build and build. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I always say we with Newcastle, we'll have a good opinion of Newcastle and how we're looking to play within the first 10 or 15 minutes.
Mm.
That will give me an idea of how we're going to play for the majority of the game.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess, that brings us on to the final question in regards to the score predictions. I mean, I've already sort of divulged mine on the preview. I'm going to go with a 1-0 win to Southampton. Got to back my boys in terms of that. But it's just really difficult to see past the fact that you guys have got an incredibly good defensive record. You've only lost once so far this season to Liverpool, if I got that right. So yeah, to Liverpool. So you take that, wouldn't you? In terms of reflection on last season. But yeah, no, I just kind of feel like with Lavia coming back into our side that we'll have a bit more of a stronghold in that midfield where otherwise we would just be completely overrun. But Pete, over to you. Score prediction?
No, I think you made a really good point. I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think it's going to be a very different game for us in terms of how we set up and how we perform. I am going to stick with a Newcastle win, purely for the reasons that you've said. The defensive unit, the back five, including Nick Pope, has been so strong, so organised. Sven Botman's just been a revelation. At the back, he's just been so good. Trippier with his ability to get forward, we just look really strong, and I just find it difficult to think a team will come and really put us to the sword without us hitting back. So I've gone with a 2-0 win for Newcastle. Could be wrong. But I just think defensively we're just so solid, and we've always got a goal in us. Alan St-Maximin's back in the squad and probably more likely to be on the bench. So we've got some firepower now, which we didn't have a couple of weeks ago, to come off the bench to really give us something a little bit extra. For me, that just adds that confidence to where we are right now. John Joe Shelby's back in the squad. We've got some players that we can bring on that can potentially change the game that years ago would have been our starters. So I just think 2-0 potentially in Newcastle United win.
Any particular goal scorers in those two goals?
It's hard to see past Callum Wilson and Miggy Almiron because of how they're playing. But I'm going to throw in a name that's not really been mentioned or talked about, and I'm going to say a Joe Willock goal. He hasn't scored any this season. I don't think he's scored at all. But I'm going to put a Joe Willock goal on Sunday. I don't know why. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Well, fantastic stuff. Well, certainly appreciate that, and I hope you're completely wrong. But these stranger things have happened indeed. But Pete, do you want to just let the subscribers of the channel know exactly where they can find you in terms of the socials and all and let us know what you kind of generally do?
Of course, yeah. We are Loaded Mag NUFC. We've only been going just over a year in terms of a year and 4 or 5 months. Nearly a year and a half with regards to Newcastle United content. So Loaded Mag NUFC for all things Newcastle. Mike knows as well, being on the channel, we are always welcoming to opposition fans coming on and voicing their opinions on Newcastle and their club as well. And we will always engage with that as well. So come along, hit the subscribe. We're about 330 away from 5K in about a year and a half, which for us, we've just got four dads that just love talking about football and about Newcastle. So for us, that's a massive achievement. So come along and join us if you like, and you like listening to other fans and other clubs' podcasts.
Absolutely. Definitely go and give Pete and Loaded Mag a smash on that subscribe button, especially as he was in the early development of our very own Shay McAdams, as he is a Scottish international now. But certainly do appreciate all that early work you put into our first choice striker, really, at the moment. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Pete, for joining us. We'll be there on Sunday to watch the game live. Hoping to catch up with some fans there at the game as well. So hoping for a good game of football, and hopefully both teams show up. And the rightly winner is the winner that deserves to be the one on the day. That's hopefully wearing red and white. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. But Pete, thanks again so much for your time. Really do appreciate you jumping on the channel to give us an insight on Newcastle United. So, but as always, remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, see you.